Hey, welcome back. We're going to take another lesson here. Today we're going to look at FF.10. Remember, we're on IXL, standard FF.10, and that's comparing the area and perimeter of two figures. Now, the figures we're about to see can be in different types, but I did want to take a second to review all the figures that we've dealt with here. Now, primarily, you're going to be dealing, when it comes to area, with four shapes: triangles, rectangles, and of course you could have rectangles and squares, parallelograms, and trapezoids. Okay, so remember, when it comes to a triangle, the area is base times height, and then you divide that by 2, because a triangle is half of a quadrilateral. Okay, so this has a base of 5 inches and a height of 8 inches. So we start with base times height. 5 times 8 is, that's right, 40. But we're not done, because once you've multiplied those two, now you have to divide it by 2. You got to cut it in half. Well, half of 40 is 20. So this would have an area of 20 inches squared. Okay? Now let's look at the area of this rectangle. For rectangles, diamonds, squares, you just do length times width. Okay? So the length times the width for about any type of quadrilateral that you have. This has a length of 8 inches. This has a height of 5 inches. 8 times 5 would be 40 inches squared. And remember, we're squaring these because you're dealing with 2 dimensions, base times height. Now, this shape, like we took this rectangle and we pushed it, and the walls were weak, so they started to lean over. This is a parallelogram. Now, remember, a parallelogram is just like doing a rectangle, but instead of us calling it length times width, you actually multiply the base, the bottom of it, times the height, and you'll see that dotted line in that H, right? And that's because this is the same thing as a rectangle. If we took, right here where we see the dotted line for the height, if we took that part of the parallelogram off, brought it over here, and slid it under, it would actually make the full rectangle. So when you have a parallelogram, you just do base times height. So this has a base of 7 centimeters and a height of 5 centimeters. 7 times 5, you got it, 35 centimeters squared. And that moves us into figure 4. This is the trapezoid. Now, you saw trapezoids in an earlier video that I did. And you can always go back and look at that lesson again, but let's do a small review. A trapezoid, first off, has 2 bases. The bottom is known as base 1, and the top is known as base 2. Now remember, we can call them base 1, base 2, because it doesn't matter which way you flip the trapezoid. So either one can be a base. Now what you do is you add base 1 plus base 2, and then you cut that in half. So what we have here is 12 plus 6. Okay? And we're going to cut that in half. So what is 12 plus 6? That's right, it's 18. And what is half of 18? Well, half of 18 is 9. So now that we've done that, all we have to do is multiply it by the height. So this has a height of 8. What is 9 times 8? 72, that's right. So for this trapezoid, it would have an area of 72 meters squared. Okay? So once again, we're going to look at these. We're going to work with these. Area of a triangle, base times height, cut it in half. Area of a quadrilateral, length times width. Area of a parallelogram, base times height, don't cut in half. And then area of a trapezoid, base 1 plus base 2, cut that number in half, and then multiply it by the height. So let's talk now. Let's start to go through some of the examples. A reminder that as I erase these and we get it set up, you're working towards a SMART score of 80, okay? If you get a SMART score of 80 or higher, you're done. the assignment is finished. All you have to do is go to your Google Classroom assignment and click that button that says Mark as Done. And that'll show me that you've completed that. And I can go to IXL and I can find your evidence. But remember, if you want to push yourself all the way to that SMART score of 100, you get those 10 bonus points and we'll shout you out in future videos. Okay? So now let's take a look at an example from IXL. So what it's given us a trapezoid and a parallelogram. So we have a trapezoid and we have a parallelogram. Okay, let's see what these measurements are like. We've got base 1 of 9 feet, base 2 of 3 feet. And now we have a height of 8 feet. So remember, bringing this line straight down, and we have a height of 8 feet. And of course we have Presley crashing the video because, hey, lessons from home. So ultimately, we're going to do base 1 plus base 2, okay? So 9 plus 3. Presley, what's 9 plus 3?
9 plus 3 it's easy, it's 12.
That's right. So we're going to have 12. And now we're going to divide that in half. Presley, what is half of 12?
6.
It is 6. That's right. So now we take that and we multiply it by the height. 6 times 8. Presley, 6 times 8. Yeah. What about you? 6 times 8? Thank you. That would be 48. So this trapezoid has an area of 48 feet squared. Now let's look at our parallelogram. Our parallelogram has a base of 6 feet and a height of 7 feet. So once again, for parallelograms, we simply do base times height. So we've got 6 times 7. You're going to have to slide over, sweetheart, so they can see the board. So we've got 6 times 7, and 6 times 7 is 42 feet squared. All right, so we've got 48 feet squared and 42 feet squared. Now we know the area of both of our shapes. So let's take a look at the problem. It says, which figure has a greater area? Well, Presley, what is the larger number, 48 or 42?
48.
48 is the larger number. Therefore, the trapezoid has the greater area. We click on the trapezoid. We hit submit. Fantastic. And we get a SMART score of 10. Let's do another problem. Presley, you take care of clicking for us. And in a second, I'll ask you what type of shapes we have and what are our dimensions. Now remember, the biggest thing that you can do to make a great SMART score on this is take your time and work the problems out. But if you have any questions at all, feel free to contact me through email, by text, by phone, but through Classroom Dojo, through our Google Classroom, whatever you need to, get a hold of me. If you want to, you can even leave your questions in the comments section, and then I'll reply back with answers. All right, so Presley, what 2 shapes do we have for the next one?
We have a triangle.
Okay, we have a triangle.
And a hexagon.
Okay, so Presley said now we have a hexagon, but let's take a look. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sides. A hexagon has 6. A pentagon has 5 sides. So this is a 5-sided figure. This is a pentagon, okay? Now, no worries. Don't be alarmed by seeing the new shape, because I can show you a couple things to see here. But first off, let's look at what the question is asking us. The question says, which figure has a greater perimeter? Well, since this is perimeter, we're just adding all sides. Here, we're going to add 3 sides. And here, we're going to add 5 sides. Always make sure you read those questions carefully so you know what to do. So first off, let's look at the dimensions on this triangle. 10, 6, and 8. So we have a height of 8 millimeters, a base of 6 millimeters, and a hypotenuse of 10 millimeters. Now with a pentagon, all the sides are going to be the same. And this one has sides of 4 millimeters. So that means this is 4 millimeters, this is 4 millimeters, this is 4 millimeters, this is 4 millimeters, and this is 4 millimeters. Okay, so now all we have to do is some adding. 8 plus 6 is 14. 14 plus 10 is 24 millimeters. This shape has a perimeter of 24 millimeters. Now we do this side. We have 5 sides, each of them 4. 5 times 4, well, we should be fine at 20 millimeters. But Johnson, you multiplied. You said add. Well, I multiplied there because each of the sides were the same. But let's go ahead and add them up just for sakes. 4, 8, 12, 16, 20. So we have a triangle with a perimeter of 24 millimeters and a pentagon with a perimeter of 20 millimeters. Now, of course, what did the question say? The question said which figure has a greater perimeter. So, Presley, what's larger, 24 or 20?
24.
Okay, click our triangle for us. Now click submit. Great job, we got it right. Now I have a smart score of 19. Let's do one more problem here. So once again, it could ask you about area. It could ask you about perimeter. You really need to make sure that you read the question carefully and then just do the math. And once again, if you have any of those questions, let me know. We have a triangle, but this time we have a triangle that is not a right triangle. Okay? But that doesn't matter because remember, this would always be your base. This would still be your height. Okay? And then we also have a parallelogram. Now, once again, remember, triangles and parallelograms both use the same thing. Here is the base, and then here is the height, okay? So, base times height cut in half, just base times height, not cutting in half because 1, 2, 3, 4, it's a quadrilateral. We don't cut quadrilaterals in half. Okay, so let's look at our dimensions. We have 10 inches and 5 inches. This has a base of 10 inches. This has a height of 5 inches. Now for our parallelogram, we have a base of 4 inches.
And a height of 5 inches.
That's right. We have a base of 4 inches and a height of 5 inches. Okay? So the question says, which figure has a greater area? Okay, let's do this nice and simple. We're looking for area. We need the area of the triangle. And we need the area of the parallelogram. Okay, so 10 times 5 is 50. Well, 2 quarters makes 50 cents. If I took one of your quarters away, how much money would you have left?
25.
25 cents, that's right. So that means that this has an area of 25 inches squared. Now for this one, we have 4 times 5. And 4 times 5 is 20 inches squared. Because once again, with that parallelogram, base times height. Well, 25, 20. The question asks, which one has a greater area? Presley, which one has the greater area? The triangle or the parallelogram?
The triangle.
The triangle is correct. Click on our triangle. Click submit. Great job. We're up to a smart score of 28. The next one would have a rectangle and another triangle. So once again, for comparing the area and perimeter of 2 figures, you're looking at these shapes. The area of most quadrilaterals, length times width. Let me do that again since someone keeps walking in front of the camera here. We have area of quadrilaterals, length times width. When it comes to a triangle, base times height, then cut that in half. You can divide that by 2. Anytime you do perimeter, you're simply adding up sides. Now, some of these problems will ask you for perimeter. Some of them won't. You want to make sure that you read the question carefully. Parallelograms, remember, that's going to look like that slanted rectangle. And that's just your base times your height. Your base times your height. And then when it comes to those trapezoids, the one that has the longest formula, you're going to have base 1 plus base 2. And once you add those together, cut them in half. That's when you divide by 2. Once you've got that number, multiply it by your height. Thank you for your time and attention today. Subscribe to the channel. Comment below if we can do anything to make these videos better. And I hope you've had a great day. We'll see you very soon.